And when we create a sense of self, we have these stories about I, me, and mine that then give rise to what's called abhinivesha, which academics always translate as the fear of death. But it's not so much the fear of death, it's the fear of the death of the story of I, me, and mine. In other words, it's not the fear that a death is going to happen to me, it's the fear of the loss of the viewpoint that we are cherishing in any one moment. A viewpoint that we cherish so that we don't actually have to feel what's really going on. So convenient. You see, for Freud, a lot like Kierkegaard and Heidegger, our ultimate fear is the fear of death, right? You see this too in a cultural way with Ernest Becker, who wrote a wonderful book in 1974 called The Denial of Death, in which he said that a culture's denial of death is related to that culture's aggression. Which I could spend more time on, but it sort of ties into Patanjali's ethics here. But for Patanjali, our greatest fear is not the fear of death. It's actually the fear of recognizing that the self never really existed in the first place. That this self that you think you are does not have a ground, except for the way that it's born out of conditions. And so there's no way to ground the self. It's ungroundable. Richard Freeman translates abhinivesha as the fear of yoga. or the fear of intimacy. The sense that to really open up to what's going on, to really look around, often when we look around, literally and figuratively, we look at what we want to see. We hear what we want to hear. We're not really open to the way things are. Which gives rise to avidya. So vidya, in summary, becomes the word in English video, which means to see. Avidya is to not see things as they are. We don't see things as they are because we cling to a view, which is a model of addiction, because really underneath all addiction is the contraction around a story. And in this perspective, a story about an object or the objectification of another person or something in one's own self or even another nation, that kind of objectification is, in this model, only set up to reinforce the feeling of having a self. In other words, you only get nationalism by creating an enemy. You can only create a sense of self internally or intrapsychically by splitting off parts of yourself and objectifying them. We'll come back to this. This gives rise to karma. Karma literally means action and the effect of action. It does not mean past lives and future lives and some kind of spiritual air miles system that lands on you in your bones somewhere, which then get reborn. When we take action, the action has an effect. But karma is not something that happens to you. This pop idea of karma, like people who say, you know, the folks in Thailand who get wiped out by a tsunami, this is like the cultural karma. It's disgusting to use karma in this way. It makes no sense. Karma literally means when there's an action, it has an effect. You cannot control the effect of the action. The only thing you can control is the intention in an action. So karma is not something that happens to you. Karma is something that you are. You are karma. All you are is action and the effect of action. And this process is happening every kshana, every second. And every time you take an action, not based on seeing things as they are, you plant a samskara, a groove, a psychophysical cultural groove. this is not a model of a meditation that's passive. It's a meditation that's very active. The whole thing revolves around karma. The sense that even when we're meditating and we're not reacting to old patterns that you describe, that itself is an action. You see? That non-reactivity is not passivity. It's a conscious action that we're taking to not reinforce those grooves. So in that sense, it's seeing non-attachment or non-reactivity as a creative, active process of fluidicizing a self. Is that a word? When you take an action in Patanjali's model, in this yogic sense, your action plants a groove or a seed in the mind, in the body, but also in the body politic. So that your actions are not just something that happen inside you, but every action you have plants patterns in the mind, in the body, and also in the culture at large. And then the samskaras are very real in a personal sense, in that the samskaras are your sense organs. All those conditions, all that conditioning, all that habit is the filter of the sense media, of your eyes and your nose and your tongue and your mind. They're all conditioned by action. And this is the model. And what we explored 2 weeks ago was that for Patanjali, this model can be sliced in half. And the usual way that people understand this is that you cut the model in half so that there can be feeling, and then once there is feeling, we can open up to feeling in such a way that we don't react to the feeling. And then vidya, rather than avidya, we see things as they are, or we feel things as they really are. In Indian Tantra, this is where we get this idea of the third eye. The third eye refers to kind of a way of seeing that's based in equanimity. And then over time, people, of course, literalize this, and then they say they really have a third eye, and then they meditate on their third eye and get migraine headaches for years trying to connect with the divine between their eyebrows. But actually what it refers to is this sense of the Dharma eye, or a kind of eye, a kind of way of seeing that is not fabricated.